Hello, all my crafty people out there. It is time for our weekly project. If you haven't been here before, my name is Stephanie, and I upcycle clothing, generally things I get from my local thrift stores and sometimes estate sales. This week, we are not making more clothing and we are not making accessories. We're making the between. I asked last week if anyone would like to see the little jean baskets, the jean leg baskets that I make. For myself, they're just convenient. You might have seen mine before. It is not fancy by any means, but it is a jean leg that I made into a little pouch, a little basket here. I squared off the bottom and I rolled down the top to make it shorter and a little sturdier. And I have everything in here from my quilt clips to my hemming ruler, you name it. What I can shove in there on the side of the desk. So, we're going to make something very similar, obviously, but we're going to line ours. Now, this is a very tiny little jean leg from one of my granddaughter's jeans I cut off this summer. So, we're going to make maybe one of these, but these are a little more challenging. We're going to make some bigger ones too. So, if you'd like to follow along, like, subscribe, let me know what you think. And let's go to the table. Okay, everybody, this is the leg we're going to be using. I think this was that extra long pair of jeans we've made quite a few projects out of. And we're going to use what's left over of some pants that I made. And who remembers these? They were fun, that wrap pants. The sheet was absolutely amazing. I love this sheet. So we're going to make this our lining. And the first thing we want to do is kind of get some measurements going. So when you're using jeans, they don't usually fall where the seams are perfect on each side. This one's fairly close, but it's not going to be perfect. In other words, you might have one seam that laps over a little more. It depends on how you want it to look. Now this particular one is for the bottom here, the bottom width of the hem, it's almost 9 inches. So it's about 8 3/4. And that's the width we want our lining to be. I know that it narrows a little this way, but if our lining is a little wider at the end inside, it's not going to make a big difference. So we want to at least have a lining that's 8 3/4. I'm thinking we probably should have a 9-inch one. This one's really close. Maybe 9.5. I think 9.5. That'll give us enough seam allowance. And if we had any kind of excess in the lining, we could take up a little notch as we're sewing it on. So no worries there. Then we got to decide how long or how tall we want our basket to be. I've done some experimenting, and 10 inches is probably about as far as I want it to go. I mean, this one that I have as an example, with the fold down, it's only 7 inches tall. So I think if we did it 10 inches, we'd be plenty big enough. So I'm actually going to cut it probably 11 inches to give us a seam allowance, and the fact that it's going to be boxed at the bottom. We are going to miter the corners. So I am going to cut this down. Let's see, there's 10, 11 inches. I think that should be more than enough. I'm going to do like this. Cut it. Make sure I'm lined up. I love this ruler. It has a lip on the end and it holds on to the mat. I have it listed in the description, but I also recently found it at Hobby Lobby. So if you've got a local Hoblob, you might be able to locate it locally. So that is our approximately 11 inches by, see, it's only 8 this way, but at the wider end, it's almost 9. So there's our leg. Now here is the inside we're going to use for the lining. And I'm going to cut it on the fold so I don't have but one seam to concern myself with. Just on the side. Well, I made 3 seams if you count the top and bottom, obviously. But we're going to cut it. Now we've got to give it a little more seam allowance. So it's going to have to be, let's just say, if we have 11.5 here, we're going to need at least 12 here because we'll have a seam allowance at the top and at the bottom where it's sewn together. So we're going to go ahead and cut this at about 12 inches. Like this. All right. So this is a fairly quick, easy project. It would be fun to teach someone with too, I think. So I need, what was it again? Let's see, almost 9 inches. So I would say that's about here. So right there is my, there we go. All right. Now, what we're going to do, this looks bigger, but it's really not that much bigger. So what we're going to do first is we're going to turn this inside out, obviously. So let's turn it inside out. And we're going to go over to the machine and we're going to make a couple of different stitches. The first stitch we're going to take is down this long side, the only open side. Remember, this is our fold. We're going to stitch all the way down this side. And then we're going to stitch across the bottom of our, well, obviously we need to turn it inside out too. My bad. Whoop, whoop. There we go. We're going to stitch across the bottom. And then we're going to miter the corners on this portion of the bag, the outside. And then we're going to sew this one onto this. But let's get our seams first. This seam and this seam I'm going to put on the serger. You could sew it with a machine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just taking the quick and easy route. That's really what I'm doing. Okay, so let's go to the serger. Okay, now we have our seam on our lining. Again, right sides together, like that. That goes over there. The next thing we want to do to the outside of our bag is finish it as far as the corners go. We're going to miter the corners, and you do that predominantly because you want it to be able to have some stand-up power. You know, you want it to be able to stand up and, you know, keep your stuff upright. So what I'm doing, slowly but surely, is I am folding these up. And what the best way I found to do this for this jean especially, is to put the 2 points together and fold them over each other like this. So this is the side seams, or what would be the side seams. It's really just the sides of the jeans. And I want to make sure that this is pretty even. So I don't want a lopsided bag. So I'm going to put it over here, just kind of gauge 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's pretty even. And I think I want to cut each one off by about 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to miter the corner 1.5 inches. So you can take your ruler and you go up. Make sure this seam is folding the same way all the way down, okay? Because you don't want it to turn in the middle. It kind of makes it bulky. So we're going to put the 1/2 inch mark on the point, and we're going to go up 1 inch. So this is 1.5 inches. And if I can find my pen, which I am sure is probably in this bag, up. Nope, I took it out when I was showing y'all. Oh, of course. Oh, no, there it is. Woo! I swear. So we're going to just mark it right here. Okay, and I'm going to put a pin in it. That just kind of keeps it stable because it can turn. And same on this side. We're going to put that point on the 1/2 inch mark. So we have a 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches. And we're going to go across there again. And we're going to put another pin in it. Now we're going to take this over to, I'm going to do this on the serger. You can do this on the machine. I'm just going to serge off these 2 corners here. And then I'll be right back and I'm going to show you how we're going to put the lining and the leg together. Again, I'm just going to go and serge that corner off on each side. Okay, we have squared off our bottom, as you can see. And this is the way it'll stand up. Of course, with stuff in it, much better than it would if it didn't have these nice mitered corners. So it's almost completely square. It's a little rectangular, but you know what I'm talking about. So the first thing we want to do with our bag, our finished outside, is mark it where we want our lining to meet this hemline. We don't want to cover the hemline up. We just want to be able to sew a little farther down from it. So, whoop, drop my pen. Of course. Trying to be graceful. Not working out for me. So I'm going to take this ruler. It's a little wonky because it's not always perfectly straight. And I'm going to draw a 1/2 inch line down the side here. And just kind of gauge where you're... Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to deal with a 1/4 inch. Yeah, 1/4 inch. So just you might have to turn your ruler a little bit so you get that 1/4 inch, because again the jean is kind of rounded, but we're trying to get us a drawing line, a line to keep our seam straight, because we're going to be doing this kind of blind. And what I mean by that is you won't see where the material is meeting the fabric underneath the seam, really. It's hard to describe, but essentially you want to just draw you a witness line there so you can measure. If you see your fabric come up and you see that line too much, then you're not far enough down. So this is our 2 pieces, still wrong side out, still wrong side out. And we're going to put, it doesn't matter which end, as far as this goes, I'm going to put this in here. All right? And I'm going to put my hand down in here. And I'm going to line up one of the seams. It's not really going to make a big difference. Might have to scrunch your fabric up a little. I'm going to line it up with that line I made. I'm going to poke myself with all these pins. Good googly moogly. And I'm going to just pin it a little to go around the edge. Doesn't have to be all the, you're not super pinning it, but you're just pinning it to make sure that you're meeting that line, and it makes it easier to stay on track while you're sewing. So we keep on pinning. And once we're through pinning all the way around, we're going to take it over to the machine and we're going to sew as close as we can to that hemline. Now, if you want to break out the zipper foot, feel free. That'll get you a close edge for sure. I'm going to use my regular foot with my needle pushed over as far as I can. And I will show y'all that when I get to the machine. So once I finish, I'll see y'all over there at the sewing machine. Now, of course, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the extension or the base of my arm here. So I have plenty of room to fit my my lining on. Is I'm going to put my lining up over, pick up my needle, my foot. I'm going to put it over the arm here, just like you would a sleeve. I think that's what it's called too, is a sleeve arm, I think. I could be crazy. And I'm going to try and kind of gauge where my hemline is. So I'm running my foot right up against it. I think I got it too far over. There we go. And I'm going to put my needle as far to the right as possible. So I'm just catching that, and I'm also making sure that I'm as close to that hem as possible. Okay, now we have our lining and our jean attached, our outside. And we want to miter these corners like we did those, but we're going to use a different technique. Those we folded in the corner and went across the corner at an angle. These we're going to cut in the square process. And I'm sure y'all have seen this before. We're still going to use 1.5 inches on our ruler. So we're going to put the 1.5 inch marks on our corner. Now, before I do that, I did fold under and press my seam allowance here. So that has been pressed, and that will come into play. You'll see what I'm saying. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to measure 1.5 inches corner here, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my lines, and I'm going to do the same over here, 1.5 inches. Make sure you use the inside of your seam allowance. You don't want to use your seam as part of your 1/2 inch. So like that. There you go. Make sure that's 1.5 inches. It is. Just looks a little small because of that seam over there. Again, don't count that as part of your 1.5 inches. Now, good old scissors. I'm going to cut that corner down like that. So we're using 2 different type of mitering techniques, and you can use either one of these as far as, you know, bags and stuff. This is the only one that I could find that would work on the inside lining the way we're going to do it. Now, when you do that, you typically have a seam already here, and you're pushing it down like this to make that corner. Well, we don't have a seam. We've got to leave this open in order to turn our bag. So we're going to put our seam allowance right in to the center mark on the side. So hopefully you'll be able to see that. So I'm folding it in, and I'm folding it at that cut line, that corner, and I'm folding in both of my seam allowances. So I hope you can see that. And I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll take that seam allowance and fold it in, and then this particular case on this side, it goes into the seam you made on the one side of the bag lining, because we did it on the fold. Now, if it was easier and you wanted to have a seam on both sides, that's fine too. You could cut your piece of liner in half and seam it down both sides. That's fine. Just got a little, there we go. So I hope y'all can see that clearly. It's kind of interesting to look at it from this view. But what we're having to do is accommodate the fact that we don't have a seam right here at the bottom. But you can see our lines fold together really well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew both of these mitered corners. And I did a little experiment. This does turn out to be just about the same size. It's just a smidge, like a less than 1/4 inch shorter then our miters adhere, but again, this will be inside. We are mitering it though. That's what counts. And that's another thing. If you made sure that this seam was centered all the way down, then your miters will fall in line as well. I didn't think to tell you that. Actually, I don't know if I thought to do it myself, but that helps you continue the miter in the right spot. So let me take this to the machine and sew down our corners. All right, here is our bag, or basket, I should say. And we still have the opening at the bottom, even after mitering the corners. So we're going to put our hand in there. We're going to grab the bottom of the other portion of the bag, the outside, the jean part. I'll pull it through like this. Now, I'm not too worried about all those serge lines and everything because it's going to be completely contained inside my bag. Now, we've turned it inside out, and I'm going to do a little slip stitching right here. Now, if you wanted to do it on the machine, or if you wanted to, you know, by all means do. It's not a very wide seam right here. I'm going to slip stitch this closed and push it in. So I've already got in my little needle caddy over here. This thing has been a miracle. I mean, not a miracle, but a lifesaver. So I'm going to grab that. Going to do a little whip stitching here, and then we'll turn it inside out. Okay, all my stitching's done. It's not my best, but whip stitching across here is pretty simple. So all we're going to do is take our lining, shove it into our bag, basket, bag, whatever. It's really like making a tote. We're going to push those corners out, make sure our lining is nice and flush in there. And then all we have to do is roll it over. And now we have a cute little lined basket that we got to use some leftover denim from. And honestly, I have some colored denim over here that I was thinking about doing as well. So it doesn't have to be obviously just plain old denim, but the sturdiness of denim is what you're looking for. And there is our basket. It's hard to see from the top, but you got the picture. Mitered corners and all. And it will fit all manner of crafts and just stuff that you've got sitting around that you need a compartment for. I hope y'all enjoyed this. And if you did, by all means, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. And I will catch y'all on the flip side of our next project.